folks, how's it going? Time for an update, I guess. How have we done since, when was it, the 13th of May to the 23rd of May, which was Friday? And it looks like I have done slightly better than Life Strategy 100 and Life Strategy 80, and Life Strategy 60 has beaten us all. And yes, not done bad since the 6th of October. How long is that now actually? About 8 months. So yeah, I'm beating my benchmarks over this year and still heavily losing as usual. 10 percentage points before I get to Life Strategy 60, so there's a long way to go to make up for all my mistakes. Alright, so let's have a look where that performance came from this week, that minus 1%. Since I'm here, I'll start with Fundsmith. Anything to note there? LVMH is doing appallingly, as usual. Intuit's done well. Of course, it's one of my tiny holdings that does the best in the week. Procter & Gamble doing well. And Alphabet as well. Anyway, there are the numbers for anyone that cares. And for my overall portfolio, it's there. Yeah, so the UK ones did pretty good, apart from BlackRock smaller companies. That's not done too well. GSK's doing well. NatWest Group's doing well. UPS is down. So that was a bad start, wasn't it, for that SDCL energy efficiency one? It's already down 8%. I don't even want to look at what Worldwide Healthcare's done. I don't want to see that it's done well since I sold it. Oh God, let's have a look though, shall we? It's flat. So yeah, another terrible decision. Anyway, okay, there's the performance. So let's have a look at the next thing to talk through. Yeah, so I've had a load of dividends. £1,282 has come through since the last time. So yeah, I've had a couple of big ones from Murray International and F&C Investment Trust. And what's disappeared from there is the Henderson International one, which I'll talk about later. So Lowland had its dividend announcement, which was increased to 1.65 pence from 1.625. So yeah, my projected income for the year has been boosted by 22 quid with that little increase that we had. If it continues at 1.65 for the rest of the year, that will be for Lowland an increase of 2.33%. So, just modest increases at the moment. They need to recover to get back up with inflation, really, don't they? So yeah, not great. And Scottish American. So yeah, up 5.1% from the dividend last year. It's gone to 625. So we can see there that the increase that we just had added about 13 quid to my income for the year. And then the last thing is that the merger of Henderson International with JGGI, JP Morgan Global Growth and Income, is all started to happen. So on the 20, well, let's have a look here, shall we? They've announced here that on the 23rd, it's Henderson International has suspended trading, which was kind of outlined in their diary, their kind of schedule of how this merger would happen. I'm not quite sure why it's temporary, because this isn't going to be traded again on the main market. This company is going to be dissolved. Is that the right term? No, this is the end for Henderson International. Yeah, so I think based on the schedule they sent previously, I think it's like the 28th we start getting the new shares. So there's a week, there's like I don't know if it's the 28th or the 29th. There's at least a few days of just having nothing to see. So we're not exactly sure when they're going to do the NAV kind of match up to decide how many JGGI shares we get. But it shouldn't be long now before it all switches. So I've kind of greyed out hint here. And for my little change, I've just put it equal to the change in JGGI. But I mean, that's not accurate, because I don't know when exactly they stop looking at the NAV of hint and just put them both together. So I don't exactly know which. As you guys probably know, I've been pondering what exactly to do. At the moment, I've gone for another plan that I haven't even mentioned, to be honest. It's partially what I've mentioned before. It's the fact that I'm not spending a lot. If you go to my spending spreadsheet here, this is my ongoing for the year. You'll notice here that I've written here that I'm in South Korea. I have been for about a week, and I've noticed that the food is very expensive. So what I've had to do is I've had to up my budget to £12 a day. Well, I say expensive. I mean expensive for my kind of foreign travels. £12 a day is about right for England for me. But when I go abroad, I pick countries. Well, I normally at least pick countries where I can live for cheaper, just so that I can keep my budget down. But South Korea, I've noticed, is pretty expensive for food. It's pretty good value for accommodation and stuff. But this is the point. I need to be flexible. If the accommodation is cheaper, I need to allow myself extra budget if needed for the food. And that's what I've done here. I've upped my budget to £12 a day. But I mean, still with that, I'm budgeting here for 3 months in South Korea, and I'm still budgeting for 12 grand for this year, where my target at the beginning of the year was about 12,480. So I'm still doing well on the budget, and even with this pessimistic overlay, I'm earning in dividends alone more than my budget by about 570 quid. So I figured, as with all of these, I can handle a bit of fluctuation in my dividend income. So at the moment, I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll just leave it as JGGI and not do anything at all. Just because I can't be bothered doing a transfer to trading 212, and it's just simpler. But what I'm thinking is, obviously at the beginning, if we look at JGGI at the moment, Henderson International has just paid 2 quarterly dividends in one go. We can see here that here's the information from the dividend that got paid on the 16th of May. It's twice the normal amount. It's 0.39p instead of 1.8. So we've got that bumper last dividend from Hint, and we're not going to qualify. The people who hold Hint at the moment aren't going to qualify for the next JGGI one, which is the last of the year. And then JGGI, its dividend gets set based on the NAV, because it gets set at the end of the year, which I think it tells us here. Yeah, so it gets set at about the 30th of June. So what I've done here is an estimate of what the dividend will be with JGGI is going to be 4%, because obviously the previously set dividend no longer applies, because we're not going to get the last one, and it will be reset based on the NAV at the end of June. So it's only a month away. So if we just use if we just say it's going to be 4% as an estimate, and it depends on how the NAV fluctuates on JGGI from now to the end of June, as to what the next value would be. So I've just set it as the Henderson International. I've taken 1% off just as like a precaution, because there will be costs, of this transition. So I've given an estimate of 176 NAV, because I've got the NAV from here, 178.38. That's from the 21st of May, because that's the last NAV that Hint had. And the yield is going to be 4% roughly. So if we do 4% of that value there, my dividend is going to go down by about 130 quid. If the NAV today is the same as it is, if the NAV on the 30th of June is the same as it is today, the dividend will go down by 130 quid. This is the problem with the 4% of NAV dividend policies, really. So yeah, it will go down, but I've been voluntarily reducing my dividends anyway this year. So it's kind of just fitting with what I've been doing myself anyway, to be honest. But who knows, if the NAV, if there's a massive fall in the markets over the next month, that dividend could go down even further. But I've decided very recently, that over the past few days, that I'm just going to accept that volatility. And then what I'm going to do from there, I'm going to accept this lower base. And then any time there is good times with JGGI or the markets as a whole, where the dividend goes up more than we would normally expect, I'm going to do what investment trusts do. And so what investment trusts do with a kind of progressive dividend policy is, in the good times, when their underlying dividends go up by more than they need, they'll hold back some of it and put it into the revenue reserves. And when they put it into the revenue reserves, they don't just keep it as cash, they just have it invested in the rest of the portfolio. So what I'm going to do is, obviously at the moment that's not happening, but even when in the future there are good times for JGGI and the dividend flies higher than I previously had here at 1385, if it flies higher than that, I will reinvest a portion of it, just like I'm doing with SDCL. I'm investing all of it, and with Gore Street Energy, I'm investing a portion of it. That's why the yield looks so low there, even though it's got a ginormous yield. So yeah, in the good times, eventually, I will reinvest a decent portion of the dividend growth. All right, just to illustrate what I'm talking about is years like this, you see, because it's completely NAV based. Occasionally, JGGI has years like this, 28% increase in the dividend, and that's just because the markets were doing well and JGGI's underlying portfolio did well. So obviously, in in 2022, in this plan, I would have probably put away the vast majority of that 28% increase. Maybe I'd have allowed myself like a 5% increase in the dividend, perhaps, and then the rest of that increase, put it into my revenue reserve in trading 212. And then when it goes down, which it's probably going to this year, the revenue reserve in trading 212 would have got sold. As it's going to go down this year, it also has years where it goes up by more than we really want it to. Now, the one thing I'm not sure about is whether I'll reinvest it in JGGI, because that small holding in trading 212 that I will have as my kind of revenue reserves for JGGI, that will be kind of bought and sold quite regularly on the 3rd of, it could, I'm starting to think to myself, is it that regular? Because it's the selling, I don't know. Because it's bought and sold quite regularly, do I really want to be paying the 0.5% stamp duty? And also, as things stand now, it's at a slight premium to NAV. I'm not really keen on buying trusts at a premium to NAV. So what I'm wondering is if instead of having the revenue reserves in JGGI itself, I should maybe use like just a global tracker with low fees and without having to pay stamp duty each time you buy it. Whether I'll just put the revenue reserve in a global tracker like ACWI, which is less liquid though, so maybe I'll go for VWRP, which is an accumulation version of a global tracker from Vanguard. So yeah, higher fees like 0.22% compared to 0.12, but it's a bit more liquid, so maybe there'll be less transitional costs. Transactional costs, sorry, not transitional. Yeah, so I'm figuring this isn't going to happen for a while because obviously it has some catching up to do. It's got 130 quid dividend to catch up. That could happen in the next month for all we know. Who knows? Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do at the moment because that's just the easy way. I don't have to do anything. I can literally just sit on my hands. The only thing I need to do is when and if the dividend catches up a bit, I'll have to just go into trading 212 and buy tiny amounts of either JGGI or a global tracker. And I'll just, because that's exactly what, there's no magic really to what investment trusts do when they have a progressive dividend policy. All they do is just hold back some of the dividend. And I can do that myself manually by just buying some shares with the excess dividend growth, even when it ever happens. And it just kind of keeps me out of bonds, because over the long term, bonds don't do as well as shares. And given my spending is already quite low, given that my spending can handle some fluctuations in the dividend, it's not a big deal if for a while I've got a lower dividend and I just wait for the good times before I start building my own revenue reserve. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do. But who knows whether it will change. It could change at any moment. And as you can see, my plans for it have changed a few times because I've spoken about this a few times. And each time, in each moment, I have a different idea of what I'd like to do. So that could change. Yes, so that's it, I think. All right, that's all I've got to talk about, I think. So I'll see you next time. Bye bye.